Okay, so here's the graph that I've drawn. So I'm just going to kind of walk you through this a little bit at a time. So my trusty finger here is going to hopefully help us figure out what I'm talking about. So the first things first, so you see these wonderful little black steps here that I've drawn. So that represents our workout or our effort. So this would be an increase in effort, and then we'd plateau out there for a little bit of time, then we'd increase our effort again and plateau, increase our effort, so on and so forth. And as we increase our effort over a duration of time, we'll see that our heart rate, represented by this red line, increases linearly with our effort and our work until we hit this point right up here, which represents our max heart rate. This blue line right underneath it represents our O2 or oxygen consumption until we get up to here where this plateaus out, and that represents our VO2 max. So moving forward with that, so this green line that you see here that kind of arches up through this way, that represents the lactate produced by our body as we increase in our work. And this wonderful green dot right there represents the lactate threshold, where the lactate in our body begins to build and increase exponentially, which you can see represented by that going up severely there. In accordance with that, so down here you see how I've extended that line up and down. So going left on this side of the lactate threshold, that represents our aerobic capacities. Primarily, we use our type 1 muscle fibers, whereas on this side of our lactate threshold, that would represent our anaerobic capacities, and that is primarily our type 2 and type 2X muscle fibers. And then as well, you can see, I won't go into this graph very much here, but those are different metabolic capacities and pathways. The first one representing PCR, our short term, which lasts about 15 seconds. The second one, the green one, representing glycolysis, and then oxidative phosphorylation, which is our long term, which goes for quite a little bit longer than that. Okay, so on here as well, you can see the different cardiovascular training zones represented here by zone 1, zone 2, zone 3, zone 4, and zone 5. We kind of build those off depending on our lactate threshold, which is usually correlated with our VO2 capacities here. And so we can center zone 4 off of that like I've done there, and we can get those different training zones. So in those different training zones, you can see I've extended them down here, so you can see the different zones. And within those zones, I've tried to draw these different training, modalities or different types of cardiovascular training. So this first one is LSD, or long slow distance. It's primarily from the bottom of zone 2 up to the midpoint of zone 3. And then after the midpoint of zone 3, you have what's called the dead zone, which you don't gain really any more, added benefits or adaptations in that zone, but you do get an increase in caloric burn. And then from beginning of zone 4 to the end of zone 4 there, that zone represents your lactate threshold workouts that you can do. And then, of course, it's kind of hard to see, but the brown section here, from the beginning of zone 5 forward, represents our above lactate or supra type workouts. So typically in your LSD workouts, you can go anywhere from 5 minutes to 60 plus minutes. You can stay there all day. You can stay there a long time. It's a fairly low effort, and down here you can see the RPE scale that I've kind of written out kind of correlates with these different zones. And then as we increase up here to the LT area, you typically want to stay there in your training zone for a stim in the LT area. In that zone 4 area there would be anywhere from 3 minutes to 60 minutes, depending on the individual. And then of course when you get up in this area here, it's 1 minute, and then as you get further up, it'd be sub 30 seconds, which is for high intensity anaerobic training, primarily focused on speed. You get benefits of economy, different things like that, where your training over here more is more your foundation and base building, more metabolic adaptations and things like that. So anyways, that's kind of a basic breakdown of the chart, and next I'll be discussing how these things have affected my life.